Welcome to the TMC Newsroom. My name is Rich Tehrani. Thanks for watching us today. On our program is Ken Murray. He is the president of VanillaSoft. Ken, how are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Likewise, thanks for being here. Many people know your company as one of the leading companies in the lead management for inside sales space, and I was hoping that we could talk about what's happening. We were on the program about a year ago.
Yeah, about a year
approximately. And since that time, I was hoping we can catch up.
Sure, I appreciate it. We had a really great year. You know, when I was here a year ago, we talked a lot about the economy, and the economy was just beginning to pick up then. We talked a little bit about the fact that so many companies had kind of downsized their outside sales teams and moved them inside. Kind of good for us being in the inside sales space. So it's been a really good run for us and a nice year. A lot of recognition, some from you guys, so we appreciate that.
Congratulations.
And a lot of chance to really look at kind of what's moving on the inside sales space world, develop a couple of new applications, what we call them mini apps or widgets within our space to continue to assist people in that inside sales space.
And you also won an award in Dallas, right?
Yeah, we did. We got named to the Dallas 100 list. That's the list of the fastest growing companies in Dallas. So that was nice recognition as well. As you well know, that comes with some pain, right? Growth always brings the positive, but it also brings, you know, the responsibility of managing that growth in a responsible way.
The increased management of people, which is always it's rewarding and can be stressful but exciting.
Yeah,
right?
And as I joke, and expectations now. We're no longer under the radar, so to speak.
Right. So how much has the company grown?
I think when we were recognized last year, I think we've grown at about 63%, and that's compounded over the prior year. I ran into a friend the other day, and he said, "Hey, you guys going to be on the Dallas 100 list again?" I said, "Gee, I hope not." You know, because if you start looking at that type of compounded growth, once again, you look at it, and you know, one of the things we pride ourselves in is really we're focused. I mean, we're so customer-centric. We like to know our customers. We like to be involved. You know, we want them to call a customer service line and actually have a person to answer. So we want to maintain all that type of integrity. And also, we run a little bit of what we call a family-centric company. We stay very involved with our employees. We like for them to be at all of their kids' events. So we want to make sure that we do manage that growth, that we fundamentally don't change, A, how we treat our customers, and equally as important, how we treat our employees.
Now, in terms of the market and companies that are working with you, how are they evolving? Now, you mentioned that they had brought a lot of their salespeople inside. Now, what are some of the ways where you've evolved over the last year to assist your customers?
Well, you know, it's a really good question, and I think it's still evolving, and just like all software companies, we're still working to understand what are the moving parts. As we've seen more outside salespeople come in, they sell very differently, frankly, than inside salespeople traditionally have, right? And also with the advent of social media being everywhere, you hear all these terms, you know, social selling, right? Sales 2.0. There's all these new buzz terms, and a lot of companies say that's what we want to go do the easy thing, right? Nobody wants to make phone calls at the end of the day, right? They just like, give me some software and let them come to me.
Of course. They want to
that's not who we are.
140-character tweet and close $1 million deal.
Let it rain money and customers on me. But so what we've seen is we've seen companies quickly shift the dynamics of saying, okay, we're going to really get focused on social media, and we're going to do Twitter, and we're going to Facebook, and we're going to do all these things, and we're going to really kind of scale back all of this cold calling, if you will, we're doing. And they've struggled with that. We've almost seen in 1 year, we've almost seen it cycle back to, because last year when I was joking with Eric, he said, you know, cold calling is dead. I'm here to tell you it's alive and back. Because as people saw that sales graph begin to drop because they simply weren't engaged with their publics, they went, okay, the truth is probably where? Somewhere in the middle, right?
Of course.
And as a company, you know, we watch those moving parts, and we always try to be a leader and kind of a thought leader within the space. But what we never want to do is just say, okay, the world has changed, let's go grab this part of the app and add social this and social that and cram it all in there without really understanding the impact on our customers. So, for instance, last year we released 2 things that allow those companies that really have a need to do what they call social calling. And we consider social calling, there's 2 types of calling, right? There's the calling where it's just a name, it's in your system, and you don't know anything about this person, and you're going to call and introduce yourself and move your products.
Kind of a generic pitch.
Exactly.
Right.
And then there's companies that have gotten focused on more social calling. That's kind of part of that sales 2.0 world. That's where they want to know something about the person they're going to call. So we developed a couple of really interesting things. One is a LinkedIn widget. So let's just say I was calling into your company.
Okay.
And your record gets routed to me. I can quickly scroll over your name, your LinkedIn profile, if you have one, and I naturally assume you do, as most business people do, will pop up, and I can get that basic information.
Sure.
I can see that you maybe have a blog. I can go look at your blog. I can get some intelligence there. So for those people that need to do that type of calling, that's a really nice advantage because it makes a little bit of a connection and gives them some insight into who that person is, what they're writing about, and where they fit within their own company. And in addition to that, we released something that I really like called Corporate View. For those companies that have salespeople that are calling into, once again, we'll use your company as an example, that have multiple contacts within a single company, we can deploy for them all of the people within that company. One key person got routed, but they can quickly roll over that LinkedIn widget and go, no, you know, Rich is the CEO. I probably don't need to reach a person at that level. They can look down and maybe find Jill, and she's the VP of sales.
Sure.
Click on that, pop her up, and do that same type of research, and then make a much more intelligent call without the old way of doing it, which is I'm going to call everybody in the company till I find the right person. So that was a really nice shift for VanillaSoft, is to be able to onboard those types of tools for companies that do want to do some social selling.
And where does that information come from in that tree of the company?
Well, two things. Obviously, the LinkedIn information is pulled right in from LinkedIn. Then the corporate view is set up is that we're able to identify certain keys when a customer of ours says, okay, we're going to acquire a database or we're going to move our customers out of our CRM into this calling platform so we can begin this particular campaign. We let them key that to say these people are associated with this person or with this company.
Right, understood. So really, I mean, we've been in this for a while, and back in it was the 80s when screen pops first were possible. I mean, back then it cost $500,000 to $1 million to even consider having a screen pop. You'd have a mainframe and a big Rockwell LCD.
I remember very well, yeah.
And so that was such a big productivity increase because callers would be calling in and you'd be able to pop up a green screen off a mainframe to see some basic information about that customer.
Right.
We've now gotten to the point where the internet is enabling screen pops to be even more effective on the outbound side because there's so much information being shared in social networks that you are able to pull that information in and rapidly have a sense of the person or company that you are going to contact as you're making that phone call, or maybe take 30 seconds or a minute or two before the phone call.
Exactly, yeah.
And so that productivity boost could really, I'm just thinking this through in terms of having a sense. I mean, you're talking about major improvements in just how much information somebody can instantaneously gather.
Yeah, absolutely, and in short order too, because just a few years ago, when people tried to do, we'll call it social selling for lack of a better term, they would leave their lead management platform. They would go to the LinkedIn or the various places that you can do this research. They would do the research, then they would move back in, and now it's just all meshed together for real-time access. I think the ongoing debate always is, that I always like to think about, is that, and I love this simple example. If you are doing social selling, right, and let's say you do X amount of research on every prospect before you call, and so you bring your total dials down and outreaches to 10 an hour, and whatever it is you're trying to do, set an appointment, sell your widget or your service, and you get one of those out of the 10. But without any social research, you go old school, and you call 20, and you get 2. 20 and 2 is still better, right? You still double the effort.
Right.
And I think that's one of the fascinating things right now that companies are really working with, is trying to understand in this new world, what are these metrics going to be? Is social selling and all the research we do prior to making a call, is it really going to pay dividends? It certainly pays dividends when a connection is made, but I was sharing with somebody the other day, a local salesman in Dallas I happened to be having coffee with, and he's doing a lot of the research before he calls. And when I said, so what you're telling me, you're getting like 1 out of every 19 you connect with. You're doing research on 18 people you've never spoken to and that you're probably never going to speak with. He said, gee whiz, Ken, when you put it that way, it seems like a time waste. I said, it's not a time waste. You just got to find the balance. Is the research that you did do, does it pay the dividends?
Sure. So, I mean, I guess part of what you need to figure out is how effective is this research in changing the close rate, right? How much more effective are the salespeople? And some salespeople, it's worth discussing, will be more effective than others armed with the same type of information, and that's a whole nother issue.
Yes, that's a wonderful observation. Some salespeople that are very talented, they need this information, right? It is what makes them the salespeople that they are. They can leverage it. They're gifted. Others, frankly, are gifted without any information at all.
Sure.
They're just
Sure.
good salespeople.
And I would even say there's a third category of people that are more comfortable with someone when they have a sense of who they are, even if it doesn't necessarily change what they say. It may change how they say it because of the comfort level, almost as if I'm speaking to a friend as opposed to speaking to a stranger, making a phone call. Then you've got to figure out how expensive is a product you're selling, and you probably have to weigh in how long is it going to take to close this sale as well.
Sure.
And you factor all that in, and you just probably do some A/B testing and figure out what's the right balance for your company. And there's one last thing, it's interesting. How many of your agents are able to multitask, to be able to absorb the data as the client is speaking? And we're raising a millennial generation at this point entering the workforce that just 5 to 10 years ago was able to process, and even up to today, process text messaging and IMing and Skyping with 20 simultaneous parties, potentially, while simultaneously playing video games and watching TV.
You're speaking of my 11-year-old daughter, obviously. Yeah, exactly, yeah.
And that type of person is a new sort of worker. I mean, you take a 50-year-old person and you drop them in that kind of environment,
Careful
and they just
now.
can't do it.
Careful.
Well, I'm almost there myself, so I feel comfortable being able to make that kind of comment. You've got these unbelievably talented kids that grew up doing all this stuff that we didn't think was a skill set, and now what you're doing is you're actually enabling these people to take what parents thought was a waste of time potentially and make it into a skill set.
Yeah, I think you're making a very, very good observation. Yeah, it is. So not so many years ago, when you looked at lead management software, inside sales software, it was pretty straightforward, right? We're going to route you the record, you're going to call it, if they're scripting, you're going to read the script and you're going to move on.
Right.
Now, there's all these options you can turn on and off. One of the things I think we do that people really like is we allow the company to turn these on and turn them off. You mentioned A/B testing. I think that is crucial. That's one of the things I think that happens so many times when we have a new wave of information that's just constantly in the marketplace. You've got to be involved in social media. Is the due diligence to do those tests, to say, we used to do it this way, and we have these metrics, and now we're going to test it this way. Too many companies just jump.
Right.
Without really thinking about the fact that they need to A/B test this. One of the nice things about platforms like ours, and like our competitors, frankly, is you can set those tests up very easily. You can say, let's make 400 social calls where we do the research. Let's make 400 that we don't do the research, and not only see how those two campaigns play against each other, but see how each of our agents that are salespeople that are involved in those campaigns do within each. And you're going to get some pretty interesting findings, and you go, you know what? We may have 5 really great social sellers that's what they need to be doing. So then you deploy those tools to them.
Yeah, this is amazing stuff that you're doing, and I'm just thinking about the next level where analytics will come into play to give you a sense of maybe the types of words to use or even the types of offers to give to someone based upon a blog entry that they may have written a month ago referring to them being price sensitive or for them maybe not being price sensitive, right?
And it's coming and it's here now. Even within our platform, we can do so many amazing things with messaging on the screen and scripting where we can take all of that key information and actually route it into the words on the screen to say, mention this, or this is a key factor to this particular prospect. I think what's going to be interesting is as we look down the road 5 years from now, when everybody has access to the same information, we're getting there very quickly, right? So when somebody calls me and knows everything in the world about me, or somebody calls you and knows everything in the world about you, are we going to get to a point as a recipient of these salespeople reaching out to us where everyone that calls us knows everything about us? So no longer is that a unique differentiator. Does that make sense?
It does, and it gets us into another level of conversation with having to do with all the social sharing that's taking place. There are more and more tools that are helping users determine what articles of interest there would be for them. And now what's happening is that same information is going to be used to help companies target them for specific offers. Now this has been done. I mean, this is not a new thing. There are mailing lists of people that are likely to purchase all sorts of things, right? From tractor supply products to automotive products to pharmaceutical products. So this is just taking it to the next level and probably narrowing it down and making it more focused and more targeted. At the end of the day, corporations will be able to become more profitable, and users will get less calls that are not applicable, and subsequently less frustration. For example, you won't get a call from an aluminum siding company, theoretically, if you live in an apartment. That kind of thing, where you eliminate that kind of wasted phone call.
Right. You know, we saw a glimpse of that, you know, I guess 6, 7 years ago when we started to see the formation of every state with a DNC list, right, do not call list, and then the national do not call list. You know, there was an outcry that this is it for any type of cold calling. Prospecting by phone is dead. But actually, from all the companies I've had a chance to sit down and talk with over the years, they said that was a huge benefit for them because essentially the non-responders, the people that did not want those phone calls, selected themselves out, leaving those in place that selected themselves in that were open. So I think to your point, the more we know about the people we're calling, the more we understand their buying habits. I think the time waste will go down. I think we'll be more targeted. I guess as the consumer, it's like, at what point do I realize that everyone knows, there's nothing new to know about Ken Murray, right? There's nothing new to know about Rich, that it's all out there in the public domain.
Then it comes down to analytics, because I think that's a challenge that now we've got to, as an industry, try to figure out how do I comb through 5,000 blog entries? Like, for example, I don't know how many I have, maybe 7,000, 8,000 blog entries. I bet you can figure out what kind of car I want.
Probably so.
Those blog entries. And I may be someone who would buy maybe 2 or 3 cars based on the class of car that I like. Which of those auto manufacturers is going to call me first when my lease is getting near completion to get me to switch from one company to another?
I can share with you right now that once again, I'm putting myself in the consumer standpoint. When I get a call, and I try to take every sales call that comes my way out of respect, because A, it's going to give me a chance to learn something, B, it helps me kind of keep my finger on the pulse of what's going on. I'm very appreciative when they've actually read a blog or an article that I've written and know something about me and can speak to the things that are important to me.
As am I.
Yeah, I really enjoy that versus the guy that calls and says, hey, you know, what's happening today? How's the weather in Dallas? It's like, okay, you know, not a lot of research has gone into that call.
Well, I mean, it's the same kind of concept that people are more receptive to those who call them that are familiar with them, but also from a similar area. Subsequently, that's why research shows if outbound calling is done from a phone number within your area, from your area code, the answer rate will be higher.
Yeah, it just makes sense, right?
So it's the same kind of thing. If they know something about you, it's almost as if they're within that circle of knowledge of someone who knows you. And, conversely, if someone calls me out of the blue and says something to me which is obviously ridiculous based upon who I am, it also gives you a lower opinion of that person who's just called you.
Yeah, and what's interesting about that, or sad almost, is that the product or service they're offering still may be a perfect fit, right?
Absolutely.
But because of the way the call started off,
ignorance from the caller can
they've
turn
lost you
off
at the very
a sale.
beginning.
Exactly, and first impressions are crucial. So, you know, this was a great conversation. I hope you come back when we're back in the area or when you're up in our studio in Connecticut.
Oh, we really appreciate it. It'll be interesting 5 years from now to look at the changes and refer back to this conversation and see, you know, what we're making available within platforms at that time.
Well, I'm sure at that time someone will be going through this video and doing the analytics to see.
They will know exactly. You're right.
Probably determining what kind of suit and tie and shirt we all have, trying to sell us something.
I'm glad we got the memo on the red today. Thank you so much.
Great to see you.
It's a real pleasure.
Take care.